Be seated. Sit down, sit down. You are Srijit.
Yes.
How do you pronounce your name? Srijit or Srijat?
Srijit.
Okay. Srijit, tell
What
something
does that
about
mean?
yourself.
It means the one who is always prosperous. It's also a synonym for Mahavishnu.
Mahavishnu. Yeah, Shri means Vishnu only. Tell us something about yourself, Srijit.
I'm from Alapura. I graduated from College of Engineering, Trivandrum in Electronics and Communication Engineering. And I started working at Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solution in 2012. And I worked there for 5 years as an embedded engineer. And in 2017, I resigned and started preparing for civil service now. And in my spare time, I engage in Raspberry Pi hobby projects and 360-degree camera, 360-degree photography, and also I contribute to academic.
Okay. But you have taken a break for almost 5 years now for civil
This
service.
is my 4th attempt, ma'am.
And you have reached up to interview sometimes, or this
No,
is the first?
this is my first interview.
Okay. So, what attracts you to civil service so much? That you have given up your job and you have given a break to your life?
There are a couple of reasons, ma'am. First, after working for 5 years, I felt that my efforts are not really benefiting the people around. And I then started thinking about alternatives. And the diversity of the civil service attracted me the most. And the authority to make decisions also attracted me.
See, but this is a time of technology now, isn't it?
Yes,
Technology is everywhere. So why you are leaving technological field for civil service, which is very mundane and very routine?
Ma'am, technology is everywhere, but the applications of the technology, especially the field that I was working on, the embedded system field, and there most of the project that I worked on, or most of the applications, school applications available, was intended for other economies, like either in Eastern, Western Europe, and
That means India is not ready for such technology still.
There are some limitations, but we can work on that. But I think that as a policy maker, I will be able to contribute more to it.
Okay, good, your choice. Industry 4.0, you have heard of this concept?
Yes.
What is it about and how India is faring there?
Industry 4.0, the concept is that the machines will be connected to internet and connected among themselves, and it will use sensors and it will have intelligence, so that it can improve productivity and also contribute to personalization of products.
Okay, so where are we in this? Are we making some progress?
Yes, ma'am, we are still lagging a bit because we started a bit late. So the concept was there since 2012 and we started around 2014 and 15.
You left, industrial field and you came to this field. Maybe because of that we are lagging behind. Lot of students like you are leaving technological thing. That is why there is a lag, or because policy was not there?
There are a couple of reasons, ma'am. So the policy was there, but the investment was not there at the early stage. And also we are lagging behind in semiconductor industry also. That is a major component in industry 4.0, ma'am.
Which are the countries which are doing some good work in this? Are you aware of this? We can compare with Germany, Singapore, somewhere?
Yes, ma'am. So Germany and USA and China, these countries are doing good work. And I worked in Germany for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So there I could see the actual implementation of this, where there are predictive maintenance happening, and where there are personalization of products happening in the chain itself, in the supply chain itself. So they also invest a lot in R&D, especially the private sector. So here in India, the private sector contribution to R&D is very less, and government contribute around 1% to R&D. So we need more investment and also more technology sharing for industry 4.0.
Okay. Do you think that new education policy will be able to, bridge the gap of what you said, that lack of people or lack of money in R&D? This can be bridged the gap.
To an extent it can be. So it has proposed a separate fund for research, and also it has proposed multidisciplinary courses. So that is necessary to create applications. So mostly we have engineers who copy the application, it seems. But for new application, we need to understand the issues at a different perspectives. So if an engineer has an understanding about, say, biotechnology or biology, he will be able to create more solutions in a biomedical field. So similarly, the multidisciplinary aspect of NEP can help.
Okay. Now tell me one thing, that this R&D, which is the, like you talked about biotechnology.
Yes.
Which are the areas in biotechnology where more research can happen to mitigate, say, food production? Because see, recently you might have read that while we were trying to export wheat, suddenly we had to stop.
Yes.
That means we don't have enough, we are not able to produce, our productivity is also low. So suppose this biotechnology field and industry 4.0 and research, where do you think that these areas, which areas in this can be taken up?
One major area I would suggest is creating climate change resilience. The recent drop in crop production was specifically due to the issue of heat waves. So climate change resilient varieties needs to be created with the help of maybe gene editing or genetic technologies. And also we need to focus on reducing the cost cost of production in agriculture. And that could, we can use, for example, Internet of Things connected drones for pesticides and such activities in
So you are suggesting that more modern techniques should be done. Gene editing, you said, there is a difference between gene editing and genetic engineering. Is there any difference? Gene editing and genetic engineering?
I'm not clearly aware of
Okay,
that.
doesn't matter.
No, that's fine. It's not that you should know everything about everything. That's not the purpose of the interview. I'm going to take you away from all the biotech and engineering which you are very comfortable with. I want to take you to history. Right? You know something about history after 10th standard?
For UPSC exam, I studied it.
Studied it, right? Okay. So, there is a recent view that Indian history has to be rewritten. That has been kind of proposed even in the time when we studied history for UPSC by R.C. Majumdar, and more recently by Sai Deepak, Vikram Sampath and others. What is your opinion? Does Indian history need to be rewritten and reviewed?
Ma'am, it depends on which history or which part of history we are talking about.
Okay.
There are views that the history written by colonial or those from colonial powers had a different view about India. So it was not, they considered, the history written by them was considering that India is inferior to, Indians are inferior to them, and that could create a negative image on the minds of students if we refer to those books. So
Like which books which show an inferior view of India or Indians?
I'm not aware of exact names of the
Please
books.
go on. There are no right or wrong answers. Just go ahead.
And
Go on.
yeah, but if there are events happened that have clear evidences in history, and we should not question them. So it depends on incident to incident and writers to writers.
So it needs to be rewritten or not to be rewritten?
It can be rewritten if there are discrepancies, if we consider the events and the evidences now.
Thank you.
So Srijit, what is your opinion on K-Rail, on the K-Rail project?
K-Rail as an infrastructure project is a very innovative idea, and also it can contribute to the economy of Kerala by attracting more investment and contributing to the tourism projects. But as of now, there are concerns raised for its financial, social and environmental viability. So the current plan needs to be revisited and a better DPR needs to be available before we proceed with such a project.
So what are some of the environmental issues associated with the K-Rail project?
Sir, there are concerns about K-Rail passing through areas which are considered economically, environmentally sensitive, and it is also said that Kerala could divide Kerala into two different parts with a 9 feet, a 6 feet high wall, and that could poses a barrier when it comes to potential of floods or possibility of floods in future.
So you feel that it should be implemented?
We need to address these concerns. We can use, for example, if it passes through regions of environmentally sensitive regions, the viaduct plan can be adopted there. And
And what will be the financial implications of that modification?
it will be huge. That needs to be considered when we check financial viability also, ma'am.
Okay, go on.
So therefore, in such a scenario, when you modify the project in such a manner, would then coming back to the same question, would it be viable then?
It needs to be checked. So at that time, if we analyze and if we find that if it is viable, we can proceed with it. And the viability need not be checked with only its revenue generating capacity. It will have multiplier effect in the economy. So just by comparing financial viability with its revenue, we cannot proceed.
So you've been a Google guide. So what is the level of your Google guide?
I'm at level 7.
Level 7. So
I have more than 5,000 points.
okay. So how many places have you reviewed so far?
I have reviewed more than 80 places.
Okay, so there is a concern that particularly with respect to Google Street Maps, that infringes on privacy. Do you agree with that?
There are some concerns regarding that, but at the same time, there are other tools to prevent it, sir.
Prevent what?
Prevent these concerns or prevent details being added to Google Map that violates privacy. For example, when I add a photo or when I add a 360-degree image, there I blur the image, the faces and the number plates of vehicles, so that privacy won't get violated. And also we can also create areas. We can also report to Google if we think that our privacy is getting violated, and Google will immediately remove it.
So this idea, the central idea that sharing of personal details helps actually private companies invested through private capital to monetize our personal details so that they can build their profits. Do you agree with that statement? That this is ethically correct? There are times which you voluntarily give your personal details, and other times you don't know. Still you give your personal details. Still.
Sir, if it has the informed consent of the user, it can be justified, because we know that when we are adding details to the Google Map, it is going to benefit others, and it can be a feedback for business firms also.
If I put my yesterday's dinner, some appam and stew or whatever on Facebook, is that informed consent or is it not?
It is informed consent, ma'am, because at the time of joining Facebook itself, you have selected who can view your post, who can benefit from it, whether it can be shared with other companies. So I think it is the user's responsibility to prevent others from accessing it.
So at the same time, usage of this data, this huge data that is available to these companies, has also led to extreme polarization politically and in the society also. So what are your views regarding that?
Sir, I would tell that as a misuse of this data, and we have regulations to an extent to control it, and we are also in the process of making a personal data privacy law, and once it is available, I think we can curb this menace.
So you're by and large in favor of the companies having their say in access to data, personal data.
If they have informed consent, I am in favor of it.
I think he makes the caveat that there should be some safeguards.
Yeah.
Are you doing that? I mean, it's not coming through clearly, but I seem to get a sense.
Thank you.
So this data thing, now how many years our data can be preserved before it can be? Is there any law on that? Data privatization policy? Do we have a policy or act here in India?
So there is a data localization policy by RBI for financial data. I don't know exactly how many years it needs to be preserved, but it needs to be preserved within India.
Not Not outside.
not outside. But for other personal data, we don't really have any policies.
Srijit, you are 32 years old.
Yes.
Now, what is the strength of the government service? If you were to list, you're opting for a government service.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what are the strengths that you would list?
Strength, I would say, strength
Now,
contributing.
what is it that attracts you there?
Ma'am, I would say it is the strength to contribute to policies and to implement those policies in ground level. And for example, I have thought I thought about this FAME scheme initially, and if I was there, that
Okay, so that's one thing. What is another? Are there any other reasons?
it's a decision-making power, ma'am.
At what level in the government do you think there is decision-making power? You know that you opted for the IAS. You
Yes.
start from field level,
Uh-huh.
district collector, and then you go up as Jeromicus, he's now director. You know, it goes up like that. And then ultimately you will become what? For an ideal civil servant, which is the highest post in the country, he or she can reach.
I think it is the cabinet secretary.
I think it is the cabinet secretary. Okay. You know who was the first cabinet secretary of India?
Sorry, ma'am, I don't know.
Why don't you then join politics if it is decision making which attracts you?
Ma'am, it also needs to. I also need to consider my skills and my interest also. But politics doesn't attract me.
Okay, so it's at the higher levels that you have policy making. You know, at the secretary level or even at the secretariat and so when you have reduced number of years in the service, is it still attractive?
Yeah, at that time we will have the authority to implement policies in a right manner and to contribute to society in that way. So I also feel that the work satisfaction by joining civil service will be much better than working as an engineer.
So that's fine. It's your call. Now, where are jobs going to be created? In the state or in the country? Is it in the government or is it outside?
Most probably it will be outside government because government, at least at the national level, there is a policy that minimum government and maximum governance, and government is gradually withdrawing from the industrial.
And as far as Kerala is concerned,
Yes, ma'am.
what is it that we should be doing? You know the limits or constraints we have in creating factories, you know, our land is small.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is it we should be focusing on, considering our strengths?
Kerala has a peculiar situation where we have aspirational mismatch.
No, you tell me the areas, the jobs, where jobs are.
So we should
Where
be
jobs
focusing on knowledge economy now.
Yes.
And-
And so,
And in technologies like semiconductors,
you mean set up factories for semiconductors?
it is possible, ma'am. Not for the semiconductor wafer factories, but for assembling, packaging, and production, ma'am.
You can also do gig works, right?
Yes, but
You were in a gig work economy. You are right now a participant in the gig economy.
yes.
So, does it make sense to strengthen that? Or does it make sense to expand the government and offer jobs?
Gig work has its own disadvantages also, ma'am. So it
Like
doesn't
what?
it doesn't offer stability or certainty of job. So it is also impacted by external events or a situation when, for example, in like a COVID situation, the formal sector workers were able to still get their salaries, but the gig workers were not. And it also it's a parasitic model where companies earn from our income. So I don't think that in long term it will be sustainable to contribute more to gig economy. Instead, we should also focus on other sectors.
That is what she's asking. Which
Yeah.
other sectors? Gig is one. What other sectors? You said semiconductor. Okay. What other sectors?
Food processing is another sector that we can focus on, and also sectors like textiles, and which also contribute to job generation.
What about tourism? Is it saturated in Kerala now, or it can generate a lot of other jobs?
It can still generate a lot of other jobs, ma'am. We have most of the tourism in Kerala now is as constrained to few locations like Alappuzha or Wayanad. We have still places other than that still to explore, and if we provide sufficient tourism infrastructure and connectivity, and if we can campaign in that way, I think it will be possible to expand it.
One last question from my side. Have you heard of lateral entry into the civil service?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
So, if a person has more than 10 years of experience without going through the UPSC process of examinations, that person can get direct.
You can directly enter the leadership position.
Yes.
So why trouble for?
She's giving you your next opportunity.
But I have only 5 years of experience.
Srijit, I see that you have done a project on Internet of Things. Right? How will you put into use IoT in governance?
IoT, so it helps to reduce the burden of workforce for the first. As a solution, like personal assistants can be used, and tools are there for automatic translation, and also.
Be specific, like 5 sectors where you can put into use and how.
Okay. So as I said, in administration we can use, and in agriculture, the connected drones can be used for agricultural activities, and in revenue area also for surveying we can use connected drones, and in education, the personal assistant can also act as a personal educator, and sorry ma'am, as of now only this much comes to mind.
Okay, right. So you love to take decisions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Imagine that you're the director of information technology, IT mission here in Kerala. So your first day, what would be the decision that you would love to take based on your observations now as a citizen?
On the first day, I don't think I'll be able to take any decisions without.
I want you to take decisions. What would be the decision that you would love to take? You are not taking it, okay? But you would want something, like whenever we are entering into something.
It is about what I think is that we need to promote more product-based services instead of just IT services. And I don't know as of now how I can do it. But once I enter the services, if I have enough data to look upon, I will make these logical choices now.
I'm going to stop you right there. On my very first day, had to stop a riot. On my first day in the service, I had to stop a riot. Right? So you can't wait for data. That's not administration. So, I mean, if you are, this is your subject, you better keep some things in your mind as to what you would like to do.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for data, because in the Indian administrative service in particular, there may not be time at times for data. We are situational leaders as well. That's a feedback, Namita.
Yes.
But, yeah, I just thought before I forget I should tell you.
Ma'am, the major issue that I see is that we are dependent on IT services, and that faces threat in future because of artificial intelligence solutions getting more priority now. So we need to shift to product-based services.
Okay. One last question from my side. How will you use your knowledge in electronics, communication and all your IoT in preventing disasters in Kerala?
Okay. IoTs always include sensors around it, and we can use it for collecting data regarding weather.
So a distributed network of weather data collection will be really useful. And also we can use at the time of disaster for drones can be used for checking, for looking for survivors. And
No, I wanted you to prevent a disaster, not
Okay.
rescue.
so the focus should be given to using a distributed network of sensors now there.
Okay.
See, what she's asking you, and I think you should be, how do you prevent means, suppose there are vulnerable spots. And then with the vulnerable spots, you can see what was happened during last 5 years from that data. Perhaps she wanted to listen to this type of an answer. Can you think of that answer now and give it to her?
Yes, ma'am. So once the data is available, we can also use the help of technology like big data or artificial intelligence to get more information from that data, and that will help in or creating evacuation plans, and also
She talked of disaster evacuation. She talked of prevention of
Prevention of
disaster.
disaster with your knowledge
Sorry,
in EC. Okay. Because we are good at rescuing.
Yes.
Kerala people are good at rescuing.
All of
Yes. Okay. So how would you prevent it? Like we have so many systems coming up these days.
Okay.
Even today I think there's orange alert in Trivandrum. No? There are systems, but
You know
still-
any state which has done that prevention and she is talking about? Not
there is-
Kerala.
there is a Odisha model of prevention for cyclone, and here in Kerala we can also use, considering the flood last time in 2018, we can also use technology for monitor levels of water remotely from dams, and the decision can be taken immediately when the water rises instead of passing through multiple levels.
Okay. Was also GIS RS part of your curriculum in your engineering?
GS was not part of my curriculum, but I am aware of it, ma'am, because I was, since I contribute to Google Maps and spherical imaging, I am aware of the concept.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
What was the subject, Srijit, for UPSC exam?
You mean option? Malayalam literature, ma'am.
Malayalam literature.
Yes.
So what attracted you to Malayalam literature for taking as an option?
Ma'am, it was a practical choice because I was looking for electronics and communication as an optional, but it is not available in the optional list. Only electrical engineering is
You could
available.
have taken anthropology or some other subject. Why Malayalam literature?
So I found a good peer group in Trivandrum, and I was also interested in literature. So I studied until 10th standard in Malayalam medium. So I thought it would be easier if I.
Easier to.
Yes.
I thought you said history, no?
No.
History was the other choice.
Thank you so much.
Uh,
How will you rate yourself?
I rate maybe out of 5 I would rate 2.5.
No, not so low. I think you are quite okay. Okay, what was your
Are you being humble or?
No, I was not clearly, I was not able to answer questions
of hers?
of us, and also since
Madam
when
Sir.
ma'am asked about questions, I was not pointing to
You are more
solutions.
scared of Kerala cadre than other cadres.
They must have known. Okay, Srijit, see, the thing is that you are, one thing is that what about your dress? What are you going to wear?
I'll be wearing a white shirt with a tie.
Okay, so next mock, if you are doing it, wear your proper dress and all. Otherwise, you know, your diction is good, your language is okay, that is not an issue. Because questions can come from anywhere, you don't know what attracts whatever. But some of the answers, you know, you were too fast to give without listening. Like disaster, we kept on giving me hint. Because only data cannot help you, no. Data is already available. Implementation or taking of the data is important. So you are talking about decision making in every sentence. But then you are not bringing that thing in your answer.
Solution.
Yes. So no, decision making. Suppose data is there, the job of a administrator is what? To look at all the data and you look at other things. You were okay in the answers you gave. Industry 4.0, see, you have to bring it that you were factually quite okay. I think you were expecting that this question may come. So you were factually okay. But you have stayed 1 year in Germany. So how they have done it? Here, which are the companies which have done it? Bosch is one company which has done it. So just brush it up because you are in that field. People may ask you, Industry 4.0 has not picked up in, because one is the cost you said, which was a good answer. But only cost may not be, people are not even aware, and the government is not helping at all. Though there is a policy, but government is not helping. So Singapore is a good model, apart from Germany and US, we are more closer to Singapore. So maybe you can look at it. Otherwise, others will tell you. But one thing is that you kept on talking about data, but how do you implement that data? You kept on saying decision making because I want to decide, that's why I want to join civil service. But then you yourself are not deciding anything. You are only saying data, data, data.
Okay. Only a few points. One is that you are very confident in giving your replies, so which I liked. Unlike most of the average candidates who appear before us who are a little nervous, you betrayed no sense of nervousness. You, within your own field, you have a fair bit of knowledge, not on the applied area, but within exactly what you have done or what you have studied. Your knowledge is pretty deep and pretty widespread. Those are the 2 points which I liked. That said, there's a big differential in the way you approach the questions. Where you are, where you know, you are very rapid, you give very long answers, which may not be required also. Be crisp. Nobody wants you to go into great detail here. Someone asks you about the 3 things which you will do on the first day, and you take off on a 5-minute answer, not required. So, where you don't know, and also as time went on, your early answers were pretty crisp and to the point. But as you become more comfortable, usually people's replies will get better, but you became more and more rambling as you became more comfortable. So, where you are either not sufficiently knowledgeable about the field, like for example, when I asked you about history, you didn't know anything at all. You didn't want to say that either. And you just, hazarded a guess, something I'll just say. No, that's not done. At least say that you don't know anything about history. That's fine. And when you become more comfortable, you become rambling. So this is something which you need to, work on. Your strengths you didn't build on, which is something which the German example, you have had real life experience, which you could. Again, you didn't listen to her question properly, which is across the board. I am finding in candidates that you are not listening to the question fully, you want to jump into the answer. Still, I would still like to make a caveat that you probably had the most difficult time of all the candidates who are going to appear today, because we have warmed up. For the first candidate, we had not yet warmed up. Okay, and there is still a lot of time. The later candidates will try to compress. So, here there is no rationing of questions with you. So, I would say by and large you fared fairly well given, our mood at present. But these are some of those areas. Little bit of overconfidence was there at times, which you should work on. I mean, you may not feel overconfident, but you give the appearance of being a little cocky. So, which I think you can work on.
I think Srijit, by and large a good interview, you maintained good eye contact. My only suggestion was that you could perhaps, as been pointed out by ma'am and all, that you can think before you answer, so that will help you to structure your answer in your mind first before you give your answer. So in between, like couple of answers, you kind of left it in the middle itself,
yes.
And then finally you said, I have nothing more to add. That's not a good way to answer. If you want to say what exactly you're saying, you think 3 points, that's 3 points. You don't need to add 4th and 5th point also. If 4th and 5th point is not there, is pointless to add actually. So just structure your answer better in your mind so that you can complete your answers correctly, crisply, in time. And regarding that KRL question and all, I think could have been a much better rounded, full defined answer. And that's an expected question actually, because in Kerala based questions that will come, Mullaperiyar Dam issue will come. These are not typical questions that are Kerala based questions, tourism related questions. Just study hard. I mean practice that before your interview. When is the interview?
So 24th.
Yeah, so I think you still have some time, so you can just practice those areas so you can give a good answer, polished answer. All the best.
What you know of, speak a little less. What you don't know of, learn a little more.
Srijit, I liked the way your confidence and the way you answered. I would suggest that you wear a crinkle free shirt, something that is neatly pressed or something.
He said a white shirt.
Yeah, and preferably white, yeah. Now, the answer to the first cabinet secretary, he's a Malayali, born in Trivandrum. His name was Raghavan Narayan Pillai. Okay, and that's why I asked the question, because he is hailed from Kerala. Now, that 32 years and service, which was the question that I asked, it's a fact that the government service holds attraction and it becomes more attractive when you have larger years of service, because it's a seniority based promotion and all that. So it is a question that you should be prepared for why you are joining at this time and what still attracts you there. Okay, there's no right answer or wrong answer in that, but leadership is one definite strength of the service. And the other strength that you can suggest is that ability to impact whatever department that you have in public service. It is in that context that I look at your answer to her question. The things you can do. You were in the gig economy working as a Google guide. You know all the problems out there which government should have tackled, which you as IT director, if only I was there. When you sit in the private sector or you sit in as a gig economy, you wish to be on the other side to rectify things, right?
Yes.
If so, you should be prepared for the things you would do, right? Sitting from here and watching Kerala lose or win the Santosh Trophy, you wish you were director sports like Jerome to improve things. Okay, if so, already I have a list. Hey, they should get this job, they should get the cash award. Yeah, we should have more stadium.
I
So
was
you
in
should
sports
have,
some time ago.
because of your background, the things you would do when you sit here, especially since you want leadership, you want to implement. And finally, ma'am, with due courtesy, apology, I believe in data-driven policy. But she raised an issue of right, law and order, which time is a constraint. So you should, when you're talking of data, in times of crisis, it's the data that you can get. But in times of planning, like prevention of disaster, there would be already data. If there's division data, get the data that you
There are
want.
both types of decision making.
Put in systems to get the data that you want, because you know what goes in comes out much more than the rest of us. So collect that data, develop policy based on it and implement. So you bring in all this. And when you are stretched for departments, think of health, think of all the departments, and when you think like that, you never stop after 3. It's like saying go alphabetically.
Like healthcare was one which you could have said that it can become a hub of healthcare. Tourism already it is there, but it can, because we kept on giving you hint and.
So that's all. You just think.
Everything has been covered. Okay, so Shrita, all the best.
All the best. You're a good candidate.
Yeah.
About your eye contact, also there was a differential. In some replies you were giving, you were looking at each of us in turn, even though one of us asked a question. In some you only looked at the person who asked the question. There's a lot of differential in the way you address different questions. I don't know why, but that is something you can
I have practiced.
No, but one thing is, whoever asks the question, you can look at the person more.
For a
That is
while,
that is not an issue, and you can look around so that everybody is engaged.
See, we are working as a unit. So you address all of us, and you did in certain questions, in certain others you did. So
Which answer you thought could have been given better answer?
The last answer.
Yes, you totally fumbled there. But anyway, you are a good candidate. Work hard.
Thank you.
You should not waste
All the
your chance.
best.
All the best.